So today I want to compare the iPhone 16 with the iPhone 14 for those considering upgrading or even cross-shopping between these devices, since you may think not a lot has changed in the span of 2 years, but no, there have been major upgrades, so let's delve in. The changes begin right with the design of these phones, because the 14 for the most part looks like pretty much every other regular iPhone we've had for the last few years, with the same flat sides and the notch, but the 16 has the new design language introduced with the 15. You have rounder corners now, which honestly don't make a massive difference, but they are slightly comfier in the hands. But more importantly, we have thinner bezels, the new dynamic island, and also a matte finish on the back. Now I know I did criticize the island back when it released with the 14 Pro, and it's still not a must-have feature by any means, but I can't lie, Apple is baking in some really cool animations with the island. Look how awesome Name Drop is. I am a sucker for some sick animations, guys, and I feel like Apple's integrating it further and further into the UI. So whilst you could live with the notch right now, it will continue to become more dated as developers play around with the island for their applications. Also, the camera module has been redesigned on the 16, which sets it apart from every regular iPhone since the 13, and I must say it looks very snazzy. You know what else would be nice? Subscribing to the channel, of course. I would greatly appreciate it and would bring you the latest about Apple right to subscription box, so please consider it. The button is below. Now, those who use a case probably won't care about this, which is 99% of consumers now I think about it, but the 16 has a silky matte finish on the back compared to the 14, and this was introduced last year with the 15 series. It was very much a welcome addition to the regular iPhone that gave it that slight premium edge, and I do not miss how much of a fingerprint magnet the older iPhones used to be with their glossy finish. Though as I said, this is very much an aesthetic change that adds no functionality, and talking about pure aesthetic changes, I do want to mention the colors on the 16 are excellent and are way better than the pastel shades we mostly got with the 14. Just look how punchy and vibrant the ultramarine and pink are. The mint shade also looks very snazzy, and thankfully Apple's got rid of the horrible midnight and starlight finish. I don't want my black to have a tinge of purple in it or my white to look kinda creamy Apple. It should just be black and white, and that's what we're getting with the 16. However, one color we've always had with the regular iPhones in the past that's missing once again with the 16 series is product red. Apple killed this off for whatever reason last year with the 15 series, and it hasn't made a return this year with the 16s, so if you desperately want a red iPhone, the 14 only offers that. Also, you get this banana yellow, which the 16 does not have. The 16 gains the action button from last year's Pro phone, by the way, and I much prefer having this compared to the mute switch on the 14 since it's user programmable, which means you can set it to do basically whatever you want. There's also camera control on the 16, which Apple refuses to call a button, but it kinda is, and this, as the name does suggest, lets you control the camera, who'd have figured, so you can now zoom in and swipe out by swiping on it. You can also use it as a shutter button to lock focus, and it gives you quick access to camera features. I will say there's a learning curve, and I haven't found myself using it all that much, but it is an upgrade regardless. And last but not least, we have Type-C on the iPhone 16, which was introduced with the 15 last year. I'm sure this alone is going to be a reason for many to get the 16. I'm actually in the minority where I couldn't care less about Lightning, and so this upgrade doesn't interest me, but of course, I know there were only 3 of us on the planet who are fine with the Lightning ports, and so I'm glad the newer iPhones have Type-C. Materials-wise, Apple has updated ceramic shield on iPhone 16, and apparently it's even tougher than before, but I'm gonna be honest, guys, these displays have been shatter resistant for a while. My biggest issue with the old version of ceramic shields was the fact the air could literally scratch it. Now, I'm not going to be testing if the 16 is more scratch resistant. I'll leave Mr. Jerry-Rig everything to do that, but nevertheless, the 16 is more durable on paper. Both also have aluminium rails, which can dent easily, but at least it's a lightweight material, and also they have the same IP68 rating. So if you accidentally drop your phone in the toilet for whatever reason, you should be fine. Moving to the display, we once again have some pretty nice changes with the 16. Though, to be honest, it's everything we got last year with the 15. So the display is slightly larger because of slimmer bezels. You do have the island, as I mentioned before, which gives the phone a nice visual refresh. But that's not the major upgrade, guys. No, the big upgrade is 1000 nits of brightness. For typical usage, 1600 nits for HDR content, and a whopping 2000 nits of brightness outdoors. The outdoors brightness especially is a game changer. It does make the 16's panel completely viewable in sunlight, And yes, because I live in the UK, we only get sunlight once or twice a year in the first place. But hey, occasionally when there is a bit of sun, the higher brightness compared to the 14's panel definitely comes in clutch. And before you say it, I do not notice a phone overheating as such when it's pumping at 2000 nits of brightness, because they have improved the thermals with the 16. And so this is a useful upgrade with the new phone. Performance-wise, the 16 is back to using the latest SoC. You see, with the iPhone 14, Apple started this horrible trend of using last year's chipset in the regular iPhone. So the 14 has the A15 with 5 GPU cores, like the iPhone 13 Pro. However, because Apple Intelligence has become a big focus and these phones need the best possible hardware to run this, we have the brand new A18 in the regular 16, which is awesome. This is a substantial upgrade on paper, and you can see the raw specs on screen right now. Wow, all those numbers are very cool, but I'm not going to pretend like the 16's performance is noticeable when it comes to regular usage, because the 14 still does everything an iPhone needs to do. Now obviously there will be edge cases. If you love yourself some Genshin Impact, you will notice the additional performance and also the better thermals. But the games I play are Subway Surf and 8-Ball Pool, which of course run perfectly fine even on $200 Android phones, so yes, I really see no difference. Both are very solid. iPhone 16 does offer 8GB of RAM compared to 6 on the 14, but both of these do manage things pretty well in the background. Really, the only difference the newer chipset makes that is substantial is, as I mentioned, Apple Intelligence support. If you want all of Apple's new snazzy AI features, you need a 15 Pro or above. The 14's not getting any of these features, and so whilst there's not much of a real life difference right now, when Apple Intelligence becomes a bigger part of the iOS experience, you will notice the benefits of the A18. But to be fair, considering Apple Intelligence isn't even available at launch and is only coming to users in beta in October, it will take a while for Apple's AI plans to roll out. Moving to the camera, this is where you start to notice bigger changes again, because I would say in every aspect of the camera experience, the 16 does have substantial improvements. Beginning with the main lens, it's 48 megapixels just like the 15 last year, and that is a lot of pickles. Now the camera does shoot in 24 megapixels by default, but for the pixel peepers out there, you will definitely notice the 16 generally has crispier shots with much more detail. But that's not the change I care about. The main reason I was so excited for the 48 megapixel upgrade last year was because it allows for the 2x crop. Now Apple kind of mentions this as a 2x telephoto in the marketing. That's pretty cheeky because it's not really a separate lens, but at the same time, this actually is pretty much as good as a dedicated telephoto, and so if you're going to be zooming into things pretty often, you have to get the 16 over the 14. Smart HDR5 also makes quite a big difference. We've all been complaining for a while that Smart HDR4 on the 14 and 13 produced overprocessed photos that would sometimes look like hot garbage. Skies especially would be overexposed, and thankfully, I see less of that with the 16, which is fantastic news. Photographic styles was also updated with the 16 series. It gives you more control on the exact look you want, and you can of course fine-tune the colors of your photos as you wish. And what's even better is that at last Apple's given us a new ultra-wide on the regular iPhone. Since the iPhone 11, which by the way introduced the ultra-wides, every regular phone has had that same sensor, which lacks key features like macro support and autofocus. Thankfully, both are now here on the 16. It does make a massive difference, and you're more likely to use the ultra-wide now. The front-facing camera has not changed, but that's not bad news to be honest, because I did love the 14's front-facing camera and the addition of autofocus, so it's just as great here on the 16. Video-wise, both produce very good footage. iPhones are the king in this aspect. Both have cinematic video and action modes, and really the main advantages the 16 has is the fact it can now record in spatial video for the 5 people using the Vision Pro. There's also Dolby Vision recording, and also the audio mix feature, which allows you to edit the audio from a video in post, and that's quite cool. As you can hear, there is a lot of background noise, massive roads, so obviously I want to test out the audio mix feature and see if it's going to isolate my sound better for those, of course, recording video on the iPhone on a regular basis. As you can hear, there is a lot of background noise, massive roads, so obviously I want to test out the audio mix feature and see if it's going to isolate my sound better for those, of course, recording video on the iPhone on a regular basis. Also, I will mention last year we got next-gen portraits where the phone automatically collected the data needed for portrait mode, and so you can turn most photos into portraits in post, and that is another camera advantage the 16 brings over from the 15 that the 14 lacks. Now the 16 does pack a slightly newer modem inside, but I haven't seen much of a difference in terms of Wi-Fi and 5G performance. Both are rock solid. You do get the U2 chipset in the iPhone 16, which does come in handy for some new features like precision finding for Find My Friends. And whilst both do have Bluetooth 5.3, the 16 does have Wi-Fi 7. So if you do have a router that supports Wi-Fi 7, you can now take advantage of the higher speeds. Both phones do offer the same emergency SOS satellite feature, which can save your life if you're stranded on a desert for whatever reason. And there's also crash detection. Now if you're wondering if Face ID is any faster on the 16 because of the island, no, that's not the case. Both are very similar in this aspect, and the same goes for the speakers and mics. Here's a comparison for you guys. And here's a mic test on the iPhone 14. There's some background noise, so let me know how this sounds. And here is iPhone 16 in the same exact location. So again, let me know how this sounds. Is there a difference? Finally, coming to battery life, Apple on their site claims the 16 offers 2 more hours of video playback and the same 80 hours of audio playback as the 14. And in my testing, yes, the battery life is slightly better. Though to be fair, the 14 was already great for me endurance-wise, and so I'll gladly take the small battery life improvements. I'm guessing it's because of the efficiency gains with the A18. Now, the wide charging speeds are exactly the same between these phones, despite the 16 having USB Type-C, and in fact the 16 even has the same USB 2 transfer speeds, which is a bit embarrassing. But you can now get 25-watt MagSafe charging that charges a phone up to 50% in 30 minutes. Also, the 16 does officially support Qi 2, but Qi 2 essentially is the same as MagSafe, and so both of these phones do support a wide range of magnetic accessories. So that's all the main differences, guys, and there's probably 2 types of consumers watching right now. Those in the market for a new iPhone, considering either the 14 or 13, or those with the 14, considering the upgrade to the 16. Now, if you're in the former category, straight up don't even think about it, go with the 16. The 14 isn't a bad phone per se, you'll probably find it just fine if you end up buying one, but it doesn't really make any sense in the range. The 14 was such a minor upgrade over the 13, and so if you're unsure about spending the extra on the 16, just save your cash and go for the near identical 13 instead. Especially on the used and refurbished market, the 13 is considerably less than the 14, and it does have near identical specs. And so if you want the best bang for your buck, go with the iPhone 13. If, however, you can cough up the extra for the 16, it's absolutely worth it in my opinion for the more future-proof chipset, the camera upgrades, the design changes, and the brighter display. If you, however, don't care about Apple Intelligence, a lot of what I talked about with the iPhone 16 is available with the iPhone 15, and so you can consider that as well. Essentially, in a nutshell, whatever you do, guys, don't buy the iPhone 14. Now, if you have a 14 right now, first of all, why did you buy one in the first place? But anyways, I can see the upgrade to the 16 being worth it completely because, like I said at the beginning of the video, there are big changes, despite there only being a 2-year difference between these devices. However, don't feel pressurized to upgrade. If your 14 is working fine and it's doing everything a phone needs to do, then of course, feel free to keep using it, but if you are ready to upgrade, the 16 is a great option, and I'll leave a link to buy these phones below. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.